What's up, guys? Just gonna run through a few different looks on SPY, maybe QQQ, maybe a few other mega tech names, probably mostly to the downside type of looks, and then run through a couple of possible upside names I'll be watching tomorrow. Obviously, a pretty tough after hours session with the FedEx earnings report, Roblox negative news in the afternoon as well, and so not that I'm hugely bullish into tomorrow, but still want to be prepared for both sides because this market's been pretty chaotic. But just letting 30 seconds to a minute here for people to stroll in, and then I'll get going like usual here. All right, I'll probably just get going here. So obviously this afternoon there was a pretty tough sell-off, followed by several moves back up. It's been pretty chaotic roller coaster intraday, and so I've just been trying throughout the day basically to keep the amount of positions that I'm in limited. I think I was in two tickers at the same time today at one time, and that was really the most that I took on at once, just because when this market turns on a dime like it likes to do, it's a lot easier to manage one or two positions that I'm trading as opposed to if I had, four or five things going. That would be a lot more difficult for me to kind of get out of that tough spot. So just been trying to stay as like agile and light and focused as I can. So I feel like most of the overall commentary and the pre-market calls, a lot of the trade plans and preparation has been pretty spot on really for the last week or two, especially. We've talked a lot about these the growth basket of names that we're usually trading in the Discord. I feel like for the most part, names like Roblox, Rivian, even Tesla to a degree, DraftKings today. I traded Neo, so a lot of green energy. Mid cap speculative names have been a lot more generous to the upside and haven't sold off quite as hard as a lot of names. And so those have provided awesome opportunities even today to the upside. Square was a great trade off of open. So there's been a lot of opportunity there, and then talked a lot about keeping the focus on probably the indexes. SPY, QQQ, Apple was a nice short trade for me towards the end of the day, and so I'm just trying not to get too fancy on the downside. That's usually something I try to avoid, is when I'm trying to trade puts to the downside in a market where there's not really a lot available to the upside. I usually keep it as simple as possible. I trade SPY puts, Apple puts, and that's honestly like as far as I usually go, because um, I think you guys have all kind of understood that I'm kind of a sector rotation guy, and I feel like Mans is a lot himself, and so before I really look to attack downside, I'm gonna really look through the market and see what's out there, because unless it's a truly super weak market, there's always something leading, and you just might have to look a little bit harder. And that's just kind of been the scenario, I guess, this week with SPY. Hasn't really looked great at all, and names like Apple super weak, Amazon. I know Gurge was in the chat today murdering Amazon, and so those names have been awesome to short. But a lot of these other growth names have been great on the long side, especially early in the day off of that early momentum. So I feel like the overall trade plans and commentary from both of us has been pretty spot on. I hope you guys have felt not super unprepared, and a lot of, I feel like the action intraday has been what we've kind of gone over. So I haven't been too shocked. I guess really the only one thing that shocked me has been the kind of trend changes for the market, because we saw that rip off open this morning, and then once it showed even the slightest bit of exhaustion, it like tanked like $4 in the matter of two 5-minute candles. And so that's really only been the one thing that's been, caught people a little off guard, I feel like, is when the market decides to turn on a dime like that. And so really just staying agile and not getting, too perma either direction, and staying to one or two positions has been helpful for me personally. So that's just some thoughts, I suppose. And then I was gonna take a look at SPY and kind of get a trade plan, I guess, with some targets together with you guys, just in a little bit more of like a relaxed setting here, because I deleted all my SPY levels and figured I would redo them tonight. So, one second. So if you look at the SPY, this is the weekly. This is not the daily, it's the weekly. And you see this is the highway I've been talking about for a while. This zone right here, really down to 390, which is what we saw tested like 4 different times today, acted as a crazy springboard almost every single time. They were able to crack it after hours, but 390 has been a huge pivot right here. And you can see why on the volume profile, especially on probably a more zoomed out weekly look. Right here, this giant volume node for 390. And then I'll zoom in a little bit here. And this trend line is actually from the daily look. This is the trend line everybody's, for the most part been talking about on the daily. And I guess it makes even a little bit of sense why we spilled so much after hours off of that FedEx news. And then we slid down to 387. And this is something we also talked about a lot in the Discord today. We weren't sure if 390 was too crowded of an idea intraday. It was like, once we really got down there to test 390, I felt like everybody was probably short. And so it was a tough place, kind of, I think, to take an entry. And then we also talked about, being such a large demand zone, they might have to do this. They might have to gap it under that 390 level to really crack it. And that's what we're seeing right now. They're, after hours off that FedEx was finally able to fall under 390 and really stay there, sitting at 387s right now. And so that's another thing I guess we were discussing that's interesting to see kind of play out was a few of us, I think Snap Your Charts mentioned it first, the idea that 390 was just so stiff that we were probably going to have to gap it under it. And that's what we're seeing right now. So that's interesting to me. And then from a levels perspective, let's see. See, it's pretty simple for me. I'm probably just going to go round numbers. 387, and you can see these wicks right here at 387. 2 right there. And so that's probably, and then you see this candle right here, this confluence right here. So 387 is probably the next pivot for me under 390. And this is where I feel like people maybe try to make it a little more complicated than it really is, just because it seems silly to almost just do, every few dollars down, mark a pivot, but that's in reality how things move in general a lot of the time. You see this wick over here down to 395 and some more confluence over here, and additionally with the volume profile right here. So that's probably the next one for me. And then 381, and I believe we were talking about this one in the chat, this kind of 380, 381 being the bigger area down, and I'll look at it on the weekly too. Let's see. The levels look super close on the weekly, but that's just how it looks. Yeah, let's see. What's this weekly low here? This weekly low is 380.66. What's this one? 380.54. So these two wicks right here, I'll probably just go 380.50. And so that to me looks like a pretty good target right there with the confluence on those two weekly lows around 380.50. So that to me is probably a bigger landing spot for SPY. I'm just kind of thinking out loud here with you guys because I don't have all of these marked out. Let's go to the daily. That to me almost looks like a pretty good little simple roadmap right there. I know there's got to be probably a level here between 385 and 380.50. But for the most part, I think that's probably a decent. I'm never going to be a guy that has a million levels or trade, crazy level oriented. They're just kind of a guide to use in general. For me, I'm mostly following trend, volume, and just overall price action. So, and this is, just a great look at the volume profile in general for SPY and kind of what we're looking at here. And you look at the volume even too, right here. You can see the sell candles off the top here, increasing volume. And then last week's candle here, that's kind of a red flag that could have hinted at this rejection up here. So, heading into the week, we had this lower volume weekly candle heading up into this portion of the profile. And so, going to be pretty good selling pressure this week, especially if we follow through tomorrow because there's still a day left on this weekly candle volume. It's probably going to be, up around here. And so that's going to be a pretty tough look probably heading into next week if we do close under 390. Really probably anywhere, 393, sub 393 is going to be a pretty tough look, especially with all of this confluence in the volume patterns. So that's kind of the SPY thoughts. And then just to look quickly here at a couple of upside opportunities that have my attention. All right, DraftKings. And this is one that the gambling sector has just been super high volume, and there's been a lot of nice moves in the gambling sector. Even Penn this morning was ripping, and Penn's been a super weak one overall, I think. Fubo had a nice move, and then along with the news that ESPN is now kind of interested in possibly partnering with the gambling company. So I think that there's a lot of good headlines going. They also had like some of their best ever handle numbers. They're now operating in New York. So DraftKings to me is probably my favorite upside watch right now. And I got to add a few more levels here on it. Let's see. Yeah, definitely right around here. Let's see where this candle opened. 19. Yeah, so 19 probably as a kind of maybe a retest level if we open down to watch. And then I think 1950 is going to be important, obviously, with this wick right here, and also this confluence around here. So you kind of see both of these, and then also right here, just a lot of confluence at 1950, and then probably another pretty perfect lineup with the volume profile. Today's high was 1979. If you look on our profile, this right here looks to be a pretty clean breakout zone. So to me, 1950 and 1979 on DraftKings, and then maybe it can trade up into this pocket right here for a nice upside lotto opportunity. And you can kind of see why, just from the price action, why there's this little gap here in the profile, because you look right here, it would be this little pocket right here in reality that it's cutting through. So single stick, didn't trade in it right here, and then single stick back down. So that's why this little pocket right here up to probably 2030, right? What was the high on this candle? Yeah, 2030. So this, I mean, that's probably the money zone right there for a lotto opportunity is 1979 up to 2030. Obviously, the market's looking horrible after hours. I'm just trying to be prepared because it is Lotto Friday and a lot of kind of growth names like DraftKings. I mean, this is the perfect name that would make a move on a Friday. We've seen kind of gamma squeeze moves on Fridays that don't make a lot of sense on stocks like this. So still want to be prepared. So DraftKings is going to be one I am looking at, and then Hood was another one that I thought was notable. Look into Win. Okay, all right. Hold up. I do want to look at Win real quick. Oh wow. Okay. Thank you, Snap, for this heads up right here. This is an awesome look. Like relative to the market, look at that volume. Do they have news? Not sure, not sure. But this is an enormous candle considering the kind of conditions of the broader market and the close we saw on SPY and Mega Cap Tech. Probably slap a few levels. Probably a 67 psych, right? 66.95. That had to have had some options flow too. That's a super interesting look here on Win, which is obviously another gambling name slash travel, I guess, but very notable candle there. Hood was another one. You can see the increasing volume on Hood. This thing's been catching a ton of volume. I think there's some FTX chatter swirling around on Hood, so this is another candle that I thought looked super strong relative to the market. Really, any candle that closed, over 50%, that retraced less than 50% of the move and made a big move today, that's going to be a notable candle. And so it's not perfect. There is some wick, but with what we're working with, I think this is one of the more attractive setups to be watching. And it's peaking. It was able to clear. This wasn't an area I was super interested in it from 10 up to really probably 1070 ish. It wasn't an area because you can see in the past it's been pretty choppy in this area over here, right here a little bit. So I wasn't super interested in it here. But now that we're able to pop out off this trend line up above this volume shelf, starting to get into some clearer air, and we look at what's this high? 1159, 1163. I'll probably just do today's high then. And there's some confluence over here. That high was 1164. Right over here. So we're trying to clear above kind of these two pockets on the chart. And if you look back, you can see what happened the last time it was able to make a move kind of over this zone. Crazy room all the way up to 1650. So I think this is one of the better looking long side ones to watch. I'll probably really only be watching this one. DraftKings. I mean, Win looks super notable. So these few right here I think are super attractive, and I'll probably be watching. We'll have to see how it plays, but probably this 1135 ish area, and then really probably. Um, Yeah, I mean it'll really probably be the 1135, and then probably I would do 1150, and then that 1163. That's really the big spot. If it can pop over this spot, there's going to be a lot of room here. Cheap contracts. Everybody loves to buy hood calls on a Friday, so I think it's a decent storm here. I'm gonna grab a drink real quick. If anybody's watching it, if you have any questions, if you're in the YouTube chat, feel free to some charts to look at, or any other just general TA questions. 1 second here. And then I believe Mans wants to watch Amazon to the downside, I believe, and I totally agree. And I think if anybody's really the one watching Amazon to the downside, it's Gurge in the chat, but murdering that thing. Nice pocket here on Amazon, closed right under this shelf here, really around this 126.30 ish. And so I think I totally agree on probably Amazon tomorrow as a potential downside watch, depending on where it opens. I love this zone right here. It's definitely probably trading lower in after hours. Let's see. Okay, we're at 123.90 already in after hours. So you can see 122.80 was the bottom tap in after hours. So right around here. And if you, I mean, there's a massive, look at that volume node right here on Amazon's daily. If we can really sub 121 down here, once it, this is going to be, if you're someone who's watching Amazon or trying to, put together a little bit of a focus list for mega cap downside watch list, like, tech names, this right here is a great zone. It's already cut through a lot of it in after hours. We'll see where it opens. But this is going to be an awesome zone for Amazon puts, really from probably 121 to be, on the very safe side, that 120 level. And you can see really 120 down to 115. This window right here is going to be a great one on Amazon. And I don't know if it's a company that's probably going to be that resilient to the market anyways. So love that idea as well. QQQ, kind of same story. There's just everything really hanging off of cliffs here. And then, FedEx kind of gave them the nudge, I think, after hours. But, I'm kind of in a chaotic mode tonight. I apologize, guys. I've got to move on Saturday morning. And so I've been a little all over the place, trying to pack up everything and whatnot. So I'm sorry if this stream wasn't the most prepared or longest, but just trying to give some thoughts into tomorrow. I am not swinging right now. That is, I took Apple put lottos into power hour, or into the 2 o'clock hour. They went 83%. I took almost half of those off for profit. So I have those. And besides that, I'm not really putting on any type of swing trades. I do like Uber, actually. Someone just dropped Uber in the YouTube. What's this trading after hours? 32.60. Okay, so it's at a ton of support, Uber is. I think that's something to note. Probably this 32.50-ish area is a huge shelf. But I love that volume structure right here we're seeing. And if you guys have paid attention to really any of my streams, this is textbook right here. Awesome volume, really, here. But when you get to today, you cannot have the highest volume candle in this trend leave that wick behind. That's showing some buyer exhaustion. I think it probably hints at some downside for Uber. I'm just a little bit concerned about this volume node. I think sub really 31.50-ish right in here, sub 31.50 or sub 31.40. That's when that's going to be a super nice setup as well. So I totally agree with Uber, just based off of this. That's a big red flag to have the highest volume on the daily trend, leave this wick behind. So totally agree there. Good eye. But I think that's all I've got for tonight. Like I said, limiting overnight risk, not over trading intraday. There's going to be a ton of opportunities probably tomorrow, a ton more next week. We've got FOMC next week, so there's going to be so many opportunities that probably look pretty obvious too. So anytime I'm sitting there midday taking trades where I probably don't really have an edge, and I'm just trading to trade, because it looks decent, it's probably a decent trade entry, it's probably the right idea. But if it's not screaming at me, I don't really want to take the trade. And so that's kind of why I've been trying to size up a little bit into my opening trades that I feel confident in, and then kind of just relaxing in the chair and waiting for something to present itself to me. It's not, I'm not trying to hunt out a ton of trades right now. It's a pretty ruthless market, and so there are going to be a ton of opportunities. I just think limiting or not having really any at all overnight risk, and then being patient intraday and taking the trades you've either prepped for, or trades that you're really liking the look on, and not just trading to be trading, because that's something you do, you can get away with doing in a super healthy bull market, not a market where rates are at 2008 levels. So it's just, you can get away with a little less, but if you're able to, have that discipline, be patient, basically just not be an idiot, and really, not take 50 trades, maybe take 5 entries that you feel great about. I think there's going to be a lot of reward to be had if those things can be managed. But that's all I've got for tonight. I will see you guys in the pre-market call, 7:30 or 8:30, I guess, Eastern. And we'll see how it looks in the morning. I suppose not looking good after hours, but we will discuss things in the morning in that pre-market call. Peace.